Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new tutorial on F1 23, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to master the pit lane entries and pit lane exits here on this very game, teaching you the braking points, turning points, reference markers, and how to maximize every millimeter of the racing track as well. Races can be won and lost in the pit lane. It is very difficult to make up time compared to your rivals on the track, but more impossible to make upwards of 1 second, even 2 seconds in some very extreme scenarios in the pit lane entry and the pit lane exit. It's probably, in my opinion at least, one of the most underrated areas of track perfection that not a lot of people delved into, and not a lot of people find the advantages that can be found within this area of extracting maximum performance from yourself and the track as well. Everyone thinks about braking points, everyone thinks about qualifying times, everyone thinks about racing times, but not a lot of people think about the pit lane entry and exit times as well. So I'm going to be teaching you how to master the pit entry, the pit exit on multiple different tracks, multiple different examples, and as well going to show you an example on how to tackle the outlap as well to get your tyres up to temperature and back up to racing speed ASAP. So breaking it down step by step, and I'm going to avoid these cars on the track. The first area of the pit entry is, of course, the white line. So you want to stay within the white line. But something that is very key to note, that in the Formula 1 game, the white line is only defined by having one tyre within that track limit. So, for example, you can attack the white line like this. Because for a while my rear left is off the track, my front left is just about on the track as well. But anyway, you can see my example. So, if we back up the car and approach this like we was looking at only applying to the white lines, what would happen is we would drive a very conservative line, and you can see there's a lot of turning that is involved in that. So what is my solution to that, or the esports driver's solution to that in general as well? Because you'll see every F1 esports driver doing this. We will cut the white lines as much as possible and make a straight line braking. And of course, a straight line braking, as I've talked about in my previous videos, is much more efficient than a braking while turning. So what do we need to do? So firstly, we want to make sure the car is as straight line as possible. Secondly, pick out a braking reference marker. For Brazil, perfectly placed is this actual tyre barrier on the right hand side. And that will allow us a good opportunity to hit the brakes hard in a straight line and then get to the what is going to be a 50 miles an hour or 80 kilometers an hour board just in time. Something that's key to remember in the game, and I'm going to show you an example of this, is no matter where you go in from the pit lane, it will allow you, and it will automatically control the car to pull back into the pit lane line. So you can actually enter the pit lane from all the way over here, and you'll see what happens. The car will automatically be pulled back into line. This is slower, and I'll show you why, is because while the car is being pulled over, you can see it slows down to 43 miles an hour, then accelerates back up to the pit lane limiter. So while you can enter over here, you can see the car instantly just goes up to 49 miles an hour and is at the pit limiter. So I'm going to show you an example of that at live speed. What we're going to do is just quickly pop back to the garage and go straight out to flying lap. And this will allow us to be spawned at the final corner and get us underway into the pit lane entry as fast as possible. Well, not quite the final corner, as it's decided to spawn us in the middle sector this time. Going over some basics, though, about braking into the pit lane is something that I find useful, is to have the brake bias slightly moved back by 1%, is because while you're braking at this very difficult marker, you want to avoid front lockups at all costs. Slightly locking up the rears is not the end of the world, but locking up the fronts can lead you to speeding into the pit lane. So, looking for our reference points, coming into the pit lane, barrier on the right hand side, as straight line as possible in the braking, and you can see that brings us down very nice and controlled into the pit lane entry. I'm going to show you a replay of this that can help you as well. So, you can see we point our car in a straight line, start braking when we get opposite the barrier or alongside the barrier on the right hand side, and we keep the car perfectly in a straight line until we have slowed down the car efficiently enough to get into the pit lane without speeding. Going over this one more time, And before I do this, I'm always going to say it's easier to bring the car back up to speed than it is to overspeed and get a 5-second penalty. So if you slow down to 30 miles an hour, then have to speed back up to 50 miles an hour, that is probably only going to cost you half a second, maybe. Of course, we all want to get it perfect and slow down to the exact mile an hour, but that can be a high-risk, high-reward strategy. What is needed in some scenarios, but mostly slowing down to 30 miles an hour and then speeding back up to 50 will be much more consistent and build your confidence rather than shatter your confidence getting a speeding in pit lane penalty because you went too fast. So always remember that. Put the brake bias back by 1%, go into the pit lane, keep the car straight as possible, and now you can start to slow it down and put the pit lane limiter on, and you can see we controlled the car nicely going into the pit lane. Something that other people do not think about in general with pit entries is when your tyres are worn on the track, you brake earlier. You take the corners slowly. So at the start of your stint, compared to the end of your stint, your hard tyres, soft tyres, medium tyres, wet, intermediates, they might be upwards of 3 seconds a lap slower per lap. Why would that not be different in the pit lane? You have to think about that the tyres are going to be less grippy on the track, so they're going to be less grippy in the pit lane, what can lead to more lockups and more sliding into the pit lane, like this example just showed. So you have to think about that the grip that you have on the track is going to be the same grip that you have off the track. So now we have covered the essence of the pit lane entry. I'm going to be showing you the pit lane exit and some general tips that you're looking to do. Something that is obviously very obvious in the game is that there is no driving in pit lane. The AI is always controlling the car in the pit lane, what gives us a unique opportunity to gain an advantage over this. So something that you'll see every esports driver doing, or at least I do at least, you'll see me spamming my pit lane limiter off button as much as possible, so then the second and the millisecond it gets to the pit lane exit, I've already pressed it and it will be off the pit lane limiter as fast as possible. Again, every second matters in competitive racing. Another thing that's useful at Brazil is, because you're turning left straight away, is to turn the wheel 90 degrees to the left, and this will allow your car to automatically be turning at a good rate. And I'm going to show you after, so slamming the pit lane exit, off, turning left, and you can see instantly my car is turning towards the apex and allowing me to progress forward and gain lap time. Showing you what that looks like if I don't is just simply, you can see if I wasn't turning left and started turning left after the pit lane exit line was turned off, then I'm going straight towards a barrier. Trying that one more time to show the point. You can see I start turning left after the pit lane came off, and you can see we completely missed that apex. Another thing that you want to do is at least practice the pit lane entry and the pit lane exit at least 5 times. So I've practiced Brazil plenty of times, so I'm going to be able to show you what it can look like coming out the pit lane limiter off, hit the apex, tyres are cold, open up the track, and then use up all the track as possible. There's no grip at the moment, but you can see we're using up every millimeter of track possible, stamping to get back on the power, and showing you a replay of that as well. So you can see we came out of the pit lane, putting in the third person camera, we hit our apex, because even though we're in the pit lane, racing lines still exist. So we came out, we got a load of wheel spin because we're in practice, there's no grip. And you can see there's also marbles in the pit lane on the tyres, so that is also another factor to consider. But as we would do on any racing track and any racing line, we use up as much of the track width as possible. In fact, we could have come closer to the wall. So that's me learning as well. I can take some knowledge from this video. So basically, you can see we use up all the road on the inside. We understeer wide. So ideally, we want to be a bit close to the pit lane entry wall. Pit lane exit wall, not entry. My bad. My mispronunciation there. We want to be a bit closer to the wall on the inside. And you can see we couldn't really get closer to the wall on the outside as well. And again, using up all the track here. And then basically couldn't really go much wider on the pit lane exit. Totally. So we're going to try that one more time, and I'm going to try and get a bit closer to the walls and maximize every centimeter of track usage as well. So going over this one more time, trying to perfect it now, and now you can see, less wheel spin this time. We knew the grip level. We used more track on the inside, more track on the outside. Lovely. More track. There's a bit of track real estate to use on the inside there. And we was able to use the full width of the track, rejoin the racing line, and now we're on our way. So that is what Brazil is going to look like in breaking it down. And what we're going to do now is go into a racing scenario so I can show you what it looks like live and how you can go over it and, well, in an actual race. So as you can see now, we are in a racing scenario using the battery up the hill. And now we're going to be peeling into the pit lane, brake bias back by 1%. Brake at our marker, keep it in the white line, straight as possible into the pit lane, put on the limiter. Make sure we remember allocated button. Turn in when it gets to 1 second, and that will give you the optimal turn-in point. So press your allocated button when you get to 1 second on the timer, and that will give you the optimal turn-in. Okay, now we're pointing to the left. Racing per exit. Much better grip than practice mode. You can see now using up all the road, and now hitting the throttle, use up all the road on the exit, and we are back in the race. So we are now here in Baku to demonstrate what is the hardest pit lane entry on the F1 2023 game, in my opinion at least. So, what makes it so difficult? That it's a high-speed chicane followed by a hard braking zone, extremely close to the walls. So, remember what I said about using a forward track over the white lines? You can see we're able to carry phenomenal speed into the pit lane, even though the pit lane speed limiter got glitched. You can see that it was saying at 58 miles an hour above the screen, but when we go in cockpit, we were easily below 50 miles an hour by the time we got to the line, doing 38 miles exact. So, as I said last time in Brazil, to be using up all of the road. So what we're going to do for you at home is an exact comparison of speed. So at the second wall, right now, we are doing 132 miles an hour. Now, I'm going to drive as fast as I can and keep the car within the white lines and do it, let's say, quotation legally. Of course, it is legal to do this in the game because it only defines by having one wheel in the white line, not all four. But I'm going to do it as, let's say, is intended. And you're going to see how much slower it is. So, 132 miles an hour is our reference point, and we're going to start braking now. And we couldn't have got too much faster than that going through the pit lane entry. So 132 miles an hour, you can see we got our first apex point pretty well, and we use up pretty much all of the track on the second, albeit a little bit of wheel spin. We are doing 89 miles an hour. So nearly, well, over 40 miles an hour. So yeah, over 40 miles an hour difference going into the pit lane, and that will equate to multiple tenths on track. That could, to be honest, if you nailed the pit lane versus doing it like this, I reckon you could be gaining upwards of 6 tenths going in the pit lane alone. And that isn't even to mention what you can gain in the second phase of the pit lane by carrying more speed through the corner and up to the braking point. The exit of the pit lane here in Baku is the same situation as Brazil, so respecting your time and your dedication watching the video, what I really appreciate. I'm not going to waste your time just for ad revenue. I'm going to go straight on to the other track that is going to be Silverstone, and that's going to show you an example of a straight line braking and how you can pick out little reference points to help you along the way. So we are now in Silverstone, my home GP. This has a very simple looking pit lane entry, but one of the easiest to speed into, in fact, because you're approaching at such a high speed with so little reference points to hit your brake pedal with. So, coming into the pit lane, you can see it's very easy to overspeed here for two reasons. The fact that it's 37 miles an hour compared to 50, and there's very little reference points. Ideally, though, there's a little marshal on the right-hand side. Wave to the marshal, because the marshal is your best friend in terms of a braking reference point going into this pit lane. And this is what this final part of the tutorial is all about. It's finding these little details within the track and around the track as well that will be your marker point on how you can get into the pit lane efficiently. So using our friend Marshall, we hit the brake pedal and were able to slow down the car efficiently with 10 miles an hour to spare. As I said at the head of the video, it's easier to release and accelerate back up to the pit limiter than it is to try and slow down from a braking point that you're never going to slow down from. So, that is the final part of the tutorial. Hopefully you found this helpful, intuitive, and detailed for your ability to improve at home. I've been Brendon Leigh. Thank you so much for watching, and the support on the channel this week has just been mind-blowing. So, really, I appreciate all of you commenting, watching, supporting. It's really making me even more passionate to do these videos, so it's something that I truly appreciate. I'll catch you in the next video. Grazie, ciao, ciao, bye bye.